Hey everybody, and welcome back to my channel. For those of you that are new, this is Junkin 101 with Cassie. I'm Cassie, and today is part 2 of a how to build a junk journal series that I am doing. So in our last video, we went ahead and we made our floating spine. We got our 2 signatures together, and we made the cover basis of our cover, so just the cover itself. We didn't cover it with our materials or anything. I also told you at the end of the video to do any sewing in your signatures that you wanted to do before today's video. That way we could sew these into our spine. So I've gone ahead and sewn in all of mine. I've picked out my end papers that I want to use for the inside of my cover, and I have also picked out some material that I want to use for the outside of my cover. So I'm going to set those aside. I also went ahead and cut out all of the ephemera for the kit, and then I sewed around the pockets, and I also went ahead and I sewed around the tags and put eyelets in them, and then I made a couple pieces of ephemera just because I won't be able to make all of the ephemera on camera, otherwise we would be here for 20 or 30 videos. So I made this cute little library pocket that will go in the front of my book. It's got the library card in there, and then it's got another little tuck spot here that I just put a label from the kit in there, and I stamped on this little tag with just a little tulip there and stuck it in there, and then I used a little bit of glossy accents on that. This is just a mini file folder that I made using my envelope punch board. Put some lace on here, did some stitching around it, some eyelash trim, a little flower, and a word. And I started a second one for the second signature, but I have not finished this one yet. And then I've also picked out a couple other things. So I got these tea bags so I can do tea bag altered paper clips, and I've got a couple of guest checks in here thinking that maybe we'll do something with those. So I'll set that aside. So now I'll show you what I've done in the signatures. So for the signatures here, I have gone ahead and sewed some lace to a few of the pages. I folded this over and did some stitching there. I zigzag stitched around all of the coffee dyed pages. So there's another coffee dyed page that I zigzag stitched around. I went ahead and did a straight stitch around that book page. Here's another page with lace on it. More zigzag stitch on the coffee dye. And then it just repeats, and the other signature is the same way as well. So I'll set these aside because for this video I want to focus on the cover. I want to focus on getting, that got messed up somehow, but that's okay, we can disguise it, you won't even know it's there. I want to focus on getting the signature sewn onto this, into the book, and then covering the book. So the first thing we want to do is I am going to flip this over, and I am going to put whatever I want on the front on the front. Now obviously this is way too big of a piece of fabric for it. This is a fat quarter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put glue all over this. So I need to get my other little mat out because I don't want to get glue all over my pretty mat. And I am going to use sorry, I had to get it out. I am going to try this a little bit different, and I'm going to use my matte gel medium. I haven't tried it this way before. I usually use Aleene's tacky glue, but that seems to seep through my fabrics a lot. This is a little bit thicker consistency, but works really well for tacking things down. So I think I'm going to give this a try, and we'll see how that goes. Let me get a brush. Okay, I got a bit of a stiffer brush here. And I do apologize about the chair squeaking. I need to get my husband to put some WD-40 on it. So I'm just going to take a bunch of this matte medium, and I'm just going to spread it everywhere. You want to make sure you get a good coat of it, and you do want to make sure you get it everywhere, because like I said, I am not going to sew on this cover because I used this extra sticky tape to hold my covers together. Make sure you spread it out evenly. You don't want no big clumps of it. Okay, I've done about half of it. So I'm going to, before that dries, take my fabric, and I'm going to make sure I have extra on my sides. And I'm just going to smooth it out with my hand. You can use a brayer to make sure it's all down. Okay. Now I'm just going to fold this part back. And then we will continue to put glue on this side. And I did pull that back a little extra just so I could make sure I'm getting all of it down. This seems like it's going to work pretty well for me. I do apologize if you guys hear like outside noises and stuff. It is a gorgeous day here in Wisconsin. So we have the windows open and we shut the air off. It's been really hot lately. We had like, with the heat index and stuff, there for a couple of days, it was like 101 outside. Felt like 101. Okay. So now we're just going to pull our fabric this direction. Smooth it out. I'm going to use my brayer on this side. Now I'm going to close up my glue. I'm going to get my glue mat out of the way, and we're going to trim off the extra. So when I trim, I leave about a 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch along the side, because you want to wrap it on the inside, and I'll show you guys that. These don't have to be perfectly straight cuts because, you know, it's going to get hidden anyway. So now we will set this extra fabric aside. We can use it for tag toppers and stuff throughout the journal to give it that cohesive look. So now I'm going to go in here and I'm going to miter my corners, leaving just a little bit of room. I hope you guys can see that. I left just a little bit of room there. I didn't go all the way up to the corner. Do this on all 4 corners. Okay. So now we're going to get our glue back out. And we're going to run the glue along the bottom here. And then we're going to, I like to take and make a little cut where my spine is, and then do like a little triangular cut. This would be easier if my scissors were sharper. And the reason I like to do this is just so that it doesn't build up a lot of bulk in that area where it's folding. So then we'll take this up. Make sure you pull it nice and snug. Just run your finger, give it a good press, make sure it's down. We will be gluing paper over the top of this too, but I'm going to trim that. And then we'll press this in. It seems like this matte medium dries pretty quickly. So I'm experimenting. You guys are learning right along with me. Sometimes with crafting, that's what it takes, you know, just experimenting to figure out what works for you. I'm going to try a different pair of scissors to see if they cut a little bit better. Oh yeah, these are cutting so much nicer. Oop. Okay. Let's put our glue on there. There's some kids outside playing. I love to hear the kids outside having a good time. It just means they're not in front of video games. Okay. Now there I did have a little bit of seep through because I had it quite thick right there, but I didn't want it to dry on me. I'm just using my finger to make sure everything's nice and smooth. Okay, now we do the sides. Okay. Again, making sure you pull it nice and snug. Okay. Do this other side. Need a little bit more glue on my brush. Okay. All right. So now what we want to do is set our glue and our brush aside. Now, as you can see, when we flip this over, we have this beautiful fabric on our cover. All of our corners are nicely covered. We're going to set this aside to dry, and we'll come back to that in a little bit. So, the next part we want to do and prepare to get ready is our spine. So we have the 1.5 inch spine and we have 2 signatures. So what we need to do is do a little bit of measuring. I'm going to use my Tim Holtz zero center ruler. So, sorry if my head gets in the way of this. I can zoom you guys in a little bit so you can see what I'm doing here. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to find the center. And it looks like right there's the center. So we want to come in a little ways from our spine because we don't want it right up against there. We want room for the journal to be able to grow. So I'm going to mark right here. And then I'm going to mark that same place on the opposite side of the 0. So if you can see, I've gone over 1, 2, 3 lines from the 0 on either side. That way I know where the middle is and where I want to put my signatures in at. I'm going to go to the other side and do the same thing. We're going to center this up, go 1, 2, 3 lines, and then go 1, 2, 3 lines. So now we've marked it. Now we know where we want our signature to be sewn in at. And I should have done this on the back, but that's okay. So we're going to line this up, and now we're going to find the center of our spine all together. So we've got that's about the center right there. And for the center, I've got it at about 4.5 on each side. So we'll put a little mark there, and then we'll slide down to where we marked this one. Right there's the center of that one. Okay, so now we have 3 points. We know where our signatures are going to go. So I'm going to think about this for a second. I haven't done very many of the floating or hidden spines, so it's going to take a little bit of thinking for myself to be able to do this as well. Let's see here. Let me find. That's the piece of cardstock that we cut off yesterday. So it's the same exact height at 9 inches. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take it and I'm going to mark it right here and right here, which is where we made the marks on our spine. I'm going to bring in my scoreboard and I'm going to mark those 2 lines, because what I'm doing right now is I'm making a template to sew my signatures in. So if I know that that needs to be there and that this one needs to be here, those are where my signatures are going to go. Okay, so now the easiest way to do this is you're going to take this and you're going to fold it in half. Okay, so you're going to fold it in half. Let me zoom back out a little bit. Okay, you're going to fold it in half. And then a lot of people like to take this and fold it down to the middle. I don't like it like that. I like to do about 1 inch. So we're going to lay it in here. And I'm going to go to the 1 inch mark and I'm going to score it across, flip it around, 1 inch mark, and score it across. Okay. That's just how I prefer to do it. You don't have to do it that way. You can do it however you want to do it. Okay. So as you can see now, we've got 3 or 6 points on here. We're going to get our bookbinding stuff out. I've got my pokey tool. Let me see what color. I think I'm going to use that for my thread. Get out a couple of these clips. Okay. Put that stuff back. I gotta get, what else do I need? I need my needle. Okay. So this is the needle that I like to use. It came with the book binding stuff when I purchased all of that. So I've got my needle, I've got my pokey tool, I've got that. You need a book to poke into. So the first step now is I'm going to take my pokey tool and I'm just going to follow these lines. Okay, and I'm going to poke holes. These are my guide holes, so you want to make sure you get these right on. Okay. Okay. So as you can see, I've got that now. Now at this point you want to mark your top and your bottom. So I'm going to mark this as my top, because even though we measured this out, we folded it in half, measured an inch in and an inch in on this side, it could still be off just a tad bit. So you want to make sure that you mark your top and your bottom. That way when you're sewing in your signatures or you're using this to poke your holes in your signatures, your top is always at your top. You're always facing your template the same direction. So make sure you do that. Okay. So now I'm going to take this and I'm going to center it on here with the lines. I'm going to move it straight up and I'm going to make sure it's lined up perfectly, and I'm going to clip. I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom. I'm going to make sure it's lined up perfectly and in the center. And now where we've poked these holes, I'm going to go back in and poke the holes again. Just following that same pattern where the holes are already poked. Okay, so now we know this is the top, so I'm going to flip this over real quick and I'm going to put top right here and I'm going to put a B right here for bottom. Okay, now we have our holes in here. I'll just go back through. Make sure they're poked properly. Okay. So now as you can see, those are perfectly straight. We'll go back in and erase our marks. Although it doesn't make a big difference because our marks are pretty small and they'll be covered up by the signatures anyway because we poked holes right where they were, you know, in line with them or so. Sorry for the shaking of the camera. Okay, so now our spine is prepped and ready to go. The next thing we need to do is not knock our brush everywhere. So we need to pull in our signatures now. So with the signatures, you want to make sure everything is in place where you want it. Make sure everything is nice and down where it should be, and then you want to clip. That way it holds everything together for us. Okay, a lot of people like to clip in their template or their guide, as they would call it. I'm not going to do that. Now, as you can see, our signatures are a little bit shorter than our template. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to eyeball this and I'm going to make sure that there is about the same distance on either side of my template here. I'm going to take my pencil and I'm going to mark it right at the top along that line. And I'm going to mark the same thing at the bottom, making sure not to move my template. Okay. Now what that's going to do is that's going to allow me to line this up exactly the same on the other signature. So I'm going to fold this in, make sure that's nice and down. Then we're going to come in with our pokey tool and we're going to poke our holes. And when you poke your holes, close your journal or your signatures up as much as you can. Make sure you keep your pokey tool nice and straight. Make sure your template doesn't move on you. You can clip that in as well if you want to. Okay. So now you see how I closed it and I kept it nice and straight. And now I've got my holes perfectly on the spine. Okay, so I need to grab a couple more clips. Where did I put them? Bear with me for just one moment because I don't remember where I put my clips at. I thought I had put them in like a tin or something, or a drawer maybe, but I'm not finding them. So let's see here. What could I use? Let me pause you guys for just one moment and I'm going to try and find my clips and we'll be right back to do the second signature. Okay, so I am back and I just got 4 of these large paper clips. I don't know where I put the rest of my binder clips at. Make sure everything is lined up. Put these clips on here. I did bring 4 over just to ensure that nothing moves on me. Okay, so I've got that nicely clipped. Make sure your top is at the top. Make sure you line up the marks that we made. So see how I've got those marks lined up right on the edges? I have the top at the top. Now we're going to close up our signature. Keep our awl or our pokey tool as straight as we can. Poke the holes. Okay. I'm going to just kind of reinforce the holes here. Or not reinforce, but just make sure I got them nicely poked. Don't poke yourself with the pokey tool. It does hurt. Okay, we'll do that same thing on this one. And one more. Okay. So, get your book out of the way. You can keep your template if you want to and just mark on it 2 signature 1.5 inch spine in case you make another 2 signature 1.5 inch spine. You've already got your template made. Okay. So, we're going to put our pokey tool away. for this, I'm using waxed linen thread, and you want it to be 3 lengths of your signature. So 1, 2, 3, and I always give a little extra, and then we're going to need a second one. Okay, we can put that away. Okay. Thread it through your needle. I like to do the back signature first. And now we can do this one of 2 ways. We can start on the inside of our signature, and then we would have our bow and our strings on the inside of our signature, or we can start on the outside of the signature and the bottom of the spine, and then our tie would be on the back here and not on the inside. So that's what I'm going to do. So we're going to go in through the middle hole, and then we're going to take our signature and very carefully go in through the middle hole, making sure we come out. Okay. Do not, whatever you do, do not let this string come all the way through. So now we're going to go to the top, and we're going to go through that, through the top hole of the spine. We're going to pull that. We're going to need a little bit more than that. Okay. Now we're going to come down to the bottom, go through the bottom of our signature. Okay, opening up, making sure we came through properly. Something's caught. Okay. Now, we're going to go back through our center one, being careful not to go through our thread that's already there. You do not want to split the thread. Okay. Now I need to pull through my end. Now as you can see on the back here, I've got both my threads on one side. We don't want that. We want one on each side of our string. So you should have a string coming out to the left and to the right with the string in the middle. Now you want to pull those in opposite directions, making sure everything is nice and snug. Check the inside, check right here, make sure it's in there firmly, and then we're just going to tie a double knot. Okay, a square knot is what you want to tie. And then, because this is on the inside, I don't want to leave a lot of extra, because I'm not going to do anything with it, so I'm just going to cut that off. And now we're going to do the same process for the next signature. Okay. Thread your needle up. The wax linen thread is pretty easy to thread your needle. You just smush it down a little bit and you're good to go. Okay. Grab our next signature and we're going to do the same thing. Make sure your top's at your top. Make sure your signature's the right direction. We're going to take our needle and go in from behind. In through the middle hole. Now we're going to go up to the top, through the signature, through the spine. Come down to the bottom. Go through the bottom hole of the signature. And of course, the bottom hole wants to give me trouble. Everything else has gone so smoothly, so why not? I'm going to go from this side and make sure that hole's nice and lined up. Sometimes your things will move on you, even though you have them nicely clipped together and stuff. Okay. This hole's just being problematic for us. That's all it is. It's being a problem child. Okay. Sometimes you just gotta play with it and get it nice and even, you know, get all those pages lined up. Okay, so now we're gonna go back to the center again, going through, making sure not to split our thread. Through the back, pull this up, take our needle off. Now I already have one on each side. We're going to pull and make sure it's nice and tight. Make sure that looks good. Make sure that part looks good. And then tie our square knot again. Trim off the extra. Undo all of our clips. Okay. Let me just put these in my little bag here. Make sure you put your needle away. Okay, so there we have it. We have both of our signatures in. As you can see, they are nicely lined up because we made sure our tops were at the top and our bottom was at the bottom at all times. They look nice and straight in there. So now what we're going to do is we're going to glue this into our cover, okay? So the first thing we want to do is glue the spine to the spine. And this does take a little bit of work. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use my Fabri-Tac, Fabri-Fix 3-in-1. They're all virtually the same type of glue. So I like the way that this holds. I think it's a nice strong hold, so that's why I choose to use this kind. I am going to go ahead and get these clips back out. I got a little ahead of myself. Okay, so we're going to take and we're going to put glue all over the middle spine. Just the middle part for now. Okay. I also like using this glue versus art glitter glue because it gives you a little bit of time to work with it and get it positioned exactly where you need it. I'm going to put a little bit of extra glue on the strings, especially here where the knot is at. And just make sure you give it a very generous coat of glue, because this is what's going to hold your signature into your book. This is it. Okay, so now I'm going to take this and I'm going to get it as even as I can. And I'm sorry, this is probably hard for you guys to see. I want to make sure it's perfectly lined up. I want to fold my covers up to make sure it's in the proper spot. Okay, I'm going to push it down with my fingers to make sure those edges get down nicely. I'm going to come in with my ruler and I'm going to go between the signatures and just kind of press it down. Go in front of it, make sure it's nicely down. Behind here, giving it a good press. So you're just wanting to make sure that everything is down in place where it should be. Again, make sure it's nicely down. I like to take the clips and just kind of clip the ends. Okay. So as you can see, the way I've done my cover here and my lace sticks out just a little bit, but the pages don't. So the pages are going to be nice and protected inside my spine. And we have no stitching on our spine of our cover. They're in there, they're nice and hidden. They shouldn't come undone because we have the ties in the back underneath here. So they've got the extra glue on top of them as well to keep them in there. So now that that's in there, we want to come back and glue down our flaps. I do apologize if you hear any noise coming from the front room. My son has decided to get up for the day, and of course, life is all about video games, right? Okay. So now we're just going to lay this down. Again, bending it up just to make sure that it's doing what it's supposed to be doing. You could take it this direction. You know, fold it over so that your spine is folded. I know it's hard to see what I'm doing, but I'm just running my hand on it, making sure the edges are down. So now we have that, and now we'll do the same thing on the back. I like to take my glue and go right along here where the crease and the fold and all that's meeting. I like to make sure I get glue there. Make sure you get glue pretty close to your edges. And you want a good amount of glue on here, because this is what, again, is holding your signatures in. So I'm going to go ahead, fold my spine the way my spine's supposed to be folded. Give it a good rub, make sure it's down. It does take a few seconds for it to grab and hold. keep pressing it down with your fingers until it takes hold and lays nice and flat in there. Make sure it folds up nicely. I have some extra glue on the sides here, but I'm not worried about that because we're going to cover it. Okay, I'm going to take these off. I'm going to make sure it also lays flat because we want it to lay flat so we can journal in it. So you want to do all of this within a pretty small window of time. I'm going to take some of my Bearly glue and just get right underneath the edge here because it's for some reason not wanting to stick. Okay. So the next step now is clean up part of our mess here. Get some of this stuff out of our way. Okay, so the next step we want to do, this side is not playing very nicely with me. I don't know why. So anyway, it's all right because we're going to be putting something over it anyway. So the next step is to take our pages and we're going to overlap. You want them to be close to your spine, where your spine bends, but you don't want it to go over, okay? So I'm going to mark where we need to cut it. And then we know it has to be 9 inches tall. So I'm going to cut both of these at the same time. That way we only have to measure once. Trim down that side. Now we're going to open the cutter. We're going to place it at 9 inches. Making sure we keep them nice and lined up. And we're going to trim that off. So, because we did those together, we now have both of our pages. And that really is not wanting to stay down, and it's bothering me. I'm going to go back in with some more glue. I think the reason it's not wanting to stay down is because it's on that tape. You know, the top of that tape is a pretty slick surface. I'm getting my hands all gluey. Okay. All right, so now we're gonna put this on here. Make sure It lines up the way we want it to. Either I cut my cover crooked or I cut the insides crooked, but that's okay. So I'm going to put glue all over the back of this. Making sure to get right up on those edges. Get a fair amount. Okay. All right. Get any extra glue that seeps out off. We're going to move that to the side. Before you glue these on, if you want to put a ribbon in here or something for the closure, you can do that now. I have found a different type of closure that I really like that I do after I do this, and we will put that on today. Okay, now we're going to do the same thing on the front. We're going to make sure that this lines up the way we want it to, making sure it doesn't go over that, and it's going to a little bit, so I'm just going to trim off just a little extra. Okay, it looks good enough to me. Make sure, again, you're getting right up on those edges. Get a good fair amount in the middle. I'm leaving just a little bit of the fabric showing on the edge right here. Okay. So now we have our book put together. It bowed a little bit right there on me. Just push it back down. Okay, I need to put a little bit of extra glue on the top here because it's not wanting to stick down. If you can see, it's bowing out right there. So instead of tossing the whole project because one little area, I'm just going to flatten it with some extra glue in there. I'm going to fold it up while I'm holding it. Hopefully you guys can see what I'm doing. So I'm folding it as I'm holding that glue there. My apologies about my son in the background. I'm sure you can hear him. Okay. I'm going to put a clip on here to hold this. Check our bottom. Okay, so I'm just going to put those clips on there to hold that in for right this moment. Okay, so now I am going to put my closure on. And the way I do my closure, again, I'm going to bring out my zeroing ruler. I'm going to find the middle, which is 4.5 on either side. I'm going to put a little mark right here with my pencil. Okay. I'm going to go to the back page as well and find my center. So 4.5 and 4.5. So here's my center. I'm going to go 1/2 inch this direction and 1/2 inch this direction. Okay. So you should have 2 marks 1 inch apart and then 1 mark right in the center. So now we're going to pull in our Crop-A-Dile, and then you're going to need 2 eyelets. I used these gold eyelets on my tags, so I'm going to use them on the cover as well. I'm going to use the big side, which is the 3/16 side. I'm going to move it to where it's only in 1/2 inch, which is about where I put my mark. And I'm just going to punch it and do the same thing on the back. Okay. Let's get that out of there. We're going in 1/2 inch, right where our mark is at, punching. We're going to get that second mark, go in 1/2 inch, punch that hole. Okay. So on the back side here where we have the 2 holes is where we are going to put our eyelets. I like to put mine, the nice finished side, out. And we're just going to punch that and punch that. Okay. So now I bet you're thinking, well, we have a hole in the front. What are we going to do with the hole in the front? So I have this big storage container that has all this stuff in it. I've got book corners, I've got feet, I've got latches, hinges, hinges that keep your stuff open. And I've got these door knockers. Now, I don't have a gold door knocker to match. So I'm just going to use, oops, one of these old gold ones. I do have rose gold, but, you know, I'm just going to use this one. Get us a screw and our door knocker, and then get the screwdriver, and we're going to pop our screw from the back side, put our door knocker on, start to twist it. We're going to hold the door knocker and then twist this. Now you can get these by Tim Holtz. Mine are not by Tim Holtz. Mine were bought off of eBay. My dad purchased them for me when he was still alive and living here. And the ones he got off of eBay, they are a little bit bigger than the Tim Holtz, and I like that. So now what I want to do is I have this piece of sari silk that matches the green within my journal. So I'm just going to trim off these pieces where it's been sewn together. So you're going to come to the back and you're going to thread this through that hole, and then you're going to take the other end and thread it through the other one. Okay? You're going to want to make sure they're about even. Close your book and then tie a bow. You want to tie the bow where it rests on that door knocker. Now, yes, it is bunching up my lace a little bit. You could have it a little bit looser if you want to. Okay. Just tie your bow. I leave all the extra because the journal is going to grow, and that way we can loosen the bow as we need to as the journal grows. Okay, so I have gone for over an hour now, and it's getting kind of noisy in my house because people are getting up and all that fun stuff. So today we covered how to put our hidden spine in, and how to make the template for the spine, and how to cover our cover and put our closure in. So I think we've covered quite a bit today. In the next video, we will start decorating our journal. I'm going to work on some of that by myself so that it's not a super long video. A lot of the decorating is repetitive work anyway. So I thank you guys for sticking in there and watching my tutorial. I hope you took something away from it. If you did, please comment down below. Like my video and subscribe to my channel and share it. I appreciate it. Until next time, guys, keep it crafty, and I'll see you in the next one.